Hi Lisa, thank you for grabbing this chat with me. Thursday the 19th of May, which is actually tomorrow, marks Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And we've taken the opportunity to speak with a few people on our team about accessibility, inclusion, and their experiences of that both personally and professionally. So to start off, I wondered if you could maybe just tell us a bit about yourself and the work you do.
Yeah. So I'm a senior content designer at Nexa Digital. So I work around, as the name suggests, designing content, and that may be words in a digital product or experience, but it can be it's other things. It's how content works together, content patterns, content strategy. So anything content related that a user interacts with, really, in the things that we make and research. And I'm a sort of a writer by trade. That's my background. And before that, I worked in information systems and databases and stuff. So I'm sort of a bit of a data and word nerd. And so I've been doing content a long time. And I think I made my first website in about 1995. I think it was Windows 95, if I remember rightly. So I've been working a long time in content and sort of pre the digital revolution, if you like. And the other thing I wanted to share was that I'm dyslexic, and I was only I've always known I've had issues with reading and writing and cognition, but I was only diagnosed about 5 years ago as part of my PhD research. I got some support from the university to do that, and that's kind of made a big difference. And I was interested in Nexa's work because of their specialism in accessibility and inclusion and what that means. Because even though I work in content design and help to design digital experiences, I really struggle with them myself as an end user. So it's something that's really important to me as a citizen and a human being, but also as a professional designer. I feel it's really important to do the best work we can for as many people as possible.
Sort of in terms of your experience of working in content design, do you use any particular tools, or are there any kind of tools that you found to make it easier for you in particular to access digital spaces and services at all?
Yeah, there's loads of great products out there to help people with dyslexia, and I've tried a few of them. Again, my university's been really supportive, so I've used something called Dragon Dictate, which is speech to text, and it does other things as well, which I found really useful. I don't use it at the moment, actually. It was more when I was first diagnosed and I was trying lots of different assistive tech out. And I use something called Read Write Gold as well, which is another thing that helps you to sort of navigate text on screen. But I haven't got those installed on my computer at the moment. I think more and more I'm looking at, I think there's sort of individual interventions and companies, like say somewhere like Recite Me, who does great. It's a product that goes on top of people's, like I think Boots have used Recite Me. And that's sort of something you add on to a digital product. And I think some of those are really interesting. But as a dyslexic, I'm really interested in being able to just navigate digital space myself. So things that I can do now that didn't used to happen is if I select dark mode, which really helps with contrast and my reading ability. I can read faster when I'm in. So I use dark mode by default if it's available. And the two things are pretty old school, but I talk a lot about them when I talk about dyslexia and design myself, is the function to be able to go back when you use a product. So like the back button or the undo is absolutely vital to me as a dyslexic person, because I'm always going to make mistakes. No matter how good a thing is designed, I will make mistakes, and I don't expect anyone to cure that or come up with a sort of a strategy for dealing with that. But me being able to go back and put right things that I know I'm going to do wrong, because sometimes I make a mistake and I don't even know I've done it till I get the error message and I'm sent into some mad loop of problems, and you can't get where you want to go. If I can go back or undo, that's incredibly useful for me. And it's so simple when you see it on the front of a user interface, but actually it has to be baked in from the get-go in a design. And that's one of the things that I feel quite evangelical about, actually, because it sort of mitigates a lot of other issues that I have all the time. So say, for example, I have to insert a, input a credit card number or a telephone number or a car registration, I will always make mistakes. It's very hard to describe, but I'll type in a string of characters and it'll look right to me, and I won't know it's wrong till I put it in, and I get chucked out of the experience or whatever it is. So the undo, the back button, those are things that would really benefit me as a user. So and content design really can help at the start of a workflow, or the design of a new product or experience or a service. If content's there, we can talk about that in terms of actually how you can do that with your content strategy and UX content. It's easy to do, but it's not easy to do retrospectively, and it's a simple functionality, but it's a game changer for me. It makes my life so much easier. So I'd say probably those two things are the main two things I would say. So they're not tools, they're things that are just, if they're built in, they're just good things, basically, and they help anyone, because everybody makes mistakes typing things in. You could be pushing a pram or on a bus or whatever you're doing, but it's just basically, I always do things wrong.
Yeah, it's just making sure that kind of users aren't caught in a bit of a loop, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
sure
Yeah.
it's there from the off and it's baked in to kind of
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's the mistakes one thing, but then it's the loop that then you start to get. Definitely with me, my cog load rises. I'll start to think I'm really stupid, I'm doing things wrong, and I know the rational part of me knows I'm not, but it taps into something. And you've been dyslexic all your life and not known about it. It kind of taps into some of the false narratives you've been told, that you're not very clever, or you won't be clever enough to work that out. And it's actually, they're just the simple errors that everybody makes. I just make more of them. And I think it's the kind of that loop itself. A loop's a good word for it, because you do that yourself psychologically, as well as it being a digital experience. So it can end up being a very simple mistake, it can end up actually being quite an emotional experience. Luckily, when I make mistakes, I'm not that. I've got friends who are much more dyslexic than me and just make mistakes all the time. So it doesn't happen to me that often that I'm sort of upset at a very fundamental level, but it does happen occasionally. And if there was a back button, that just wouldn't happen. So it's just as simple as that, really.
Which kind of leads on quite nicely, I think, to the final question that I've sort of got written here, which is, if there was something that you wish everybody knew about digital accessibility and inclusion, it's quite a difficult one to kind of just have the one thing, but what would it be if there was?
It is a great question, because there's so many, obviously as many as there are of us, that's probably as many responses there are. But I think for me, there's something around, I've sort of touched on it before, that there are some things, we're always looking to fix things or to make things better, which is always a good thing. But I think sometimes what I maybe would say is, I'd like people to understand that sometimes you can't fix things. My dyslexia can't be fixed, no matter how good a thing a design, if you had as much budget as you needed, and if you had everything in place, it wouldn't stop me making the mistakes I make. And I think that's something that, even when people are coming from a very, well-meaning, positive place of wanting to help, I think the voice of somebody like me being able to say that and being heard, it's not diminishing my experience. It's saying, actually, don't worry about that. Let's just make a back button or a back function. And actually, to do that, you have to think about your content strategy. You have to think about your information architecture. No matter what it is, you have to think about the sort of the back end, the back office of what you're making in a digital product. And it's not about curing me or anybody else. It's about thinking, that's another user and that's their needs. And we can, like a back button can help so many people. But if you can't do it afterwards, when you think, well, I wonder if we should do something about inclusion and accessibility, you have to think about it right from the beginning. So I think it's like, not everything's fixable, and that's okay. I'm okay with being dyslexic. I'm not okay with awful designs that puts me into very upsetting loops that don't need to happen. And so it's okay that things are difficult sometimes, but I would say empower people to help themselves. And that's the most important thing I can think of right now. As soon as we stop talking, there'll be loads of other stuff. But that right now, I think that's what I'd like to share.
Simple thing to implement, but it makes a massive quality of life difference, and it so much, doesn't it? But
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, fab. Well, yeah, I think that's a excellent kind of point to wrap up on. And yeah,
Great.
thank you very much for talking to us.
That's all right. Thanks for asking.
Cheers, Lisa. Thank you.